kids know when you're weird. Like, they know. It's so crazy. Hi, I'm Kate, and welcome to Always Tuck and Roll. We discuss life, the universe, and everything through the lens of autism, because autistic. So, anything I say is going to be through the lens of autism realistically. And actually, today, I think we should talk about autism. Specifically, I want to talk about the most ridiculous phrase I have ever heard in relation to autism, and that is, "You don't look autistic." Pray tell, what does that supposed to mean? What does autism look like? It is a neurological disorder. It is a developmental disorder. This is not physical. This is mental. There is no physical trait. This is yet another example of people just not understanding autism even a little bit. And I think at this point in time, in 2025, it is because we are intentionally misunderstanding it. It is absurd that this is where we're still at. That we should even have to have this conversation. And yet here we are. So, I am a late diagnosed autistic individual. I did not get diagnosed until 1 week before I turned 38. And for context, I will be 40 in about 2 months, realistically. 3? I'm not mathing. I don't like to speak in generals. I usually like to be really specific, but it's soonish. And I don't really care one way or the other about 40. I think it's just a number. I think it's more funny how everyone else treats it. But, we'll do a video just on 40 and go from there. This is about stupid language problems. Because what is autism supposed to look like? Honestly. And I think part of the problem is that we have this stereotype in our heads of, a nonverbal 5-year-old boy. And what that stereotype overlooks is that 5-year-old boy's gonna grow up and be an adult. And he's still gonna need resources, and still gonna need help, and still be a person. They're still going to be an individual. It doesn't matter what level of autism that child will have. They're always going to be an individual with individual specific needs, and none of them will involve looking one way or the other as a concept of autism. Because this is yet another case where if you know one autistic person, you know one autistic person. We don't all look the same. We don't all act the same. Are there traits we have in common? Yes, obviously, because we're autistic. There's diagnosis criteria that we have met. I will not invalidate people who have self-diagnosed, because I was self-diagnosed for 20 years and eventually was able to get testing, which as an adult is super, super hard. There are not a lot of places that'll do it. Which is crazy because experts are acknowledging how many people were missed in the 80s and 90s and well before, but my lifetime is just, the 80s and 90s forward. It's like the 80s and 90s and today I sound like a 90s disc jockey. Do not have a voice for radio, that is for sure. Anyway. So, with that stereotype, and then probably older generations might have the stereotype of, at least, he grew up to be Rain Man, which is so reductive. I mean, the movie does display autism really well, but that is a level 3 case, and media tends to only show levels 2 and 3 and male, is what I've noticed, at least anytime they try to include autism in the social or in pop culture, which is really frustrating because again, women get it or have it too. It's not a get it. It's not something you can catch. You're born with it. So a big part of the problem why women specifically are completely ignored in the autism thing and are most likely, I believe, at least in my experience, to get the "you don't look autistic." It's because of how women are raised culturally. We're raised to, not stand out, to not take up space, to not speak up, to just like be in the background in a supporting role so that you can be the helper, not the person who needs help. I know that I used to get put in the team teaching classes in school so that I could help the kids that needed more help. But what they didn't understand was that I actually needed as much help as those kids did. I just couldn't speak up about it and was better at covering up when I didn't know something. And honestly, I was almost kept back in the first grade because I was emotionally immature, but realistically, what I was autistic. My parents were like, "Can she do the work?" And they were like, "Yeah, she can do the work. And they're like, "Well, then send her to keep doing the work because she's going to get bored if you keep her here." And realistically, that would have ruined my love of education because I would have felt like a failure and not understood why. If I did it all right the first time, why am I doing it again? With different people. That would have driven me insane. But because of the way, like, I'm still learning about myself, and I feel like as someone who's on the cusp of 40, I should know myself better. And I'm told by my therapist that I actually do know myself quite well, and I think it's because I've always lived largely inside my own head trying to make sense of the world. So I've had enough time and introspection to sort of begin to understand why. But so many of my issues were ones I could just ignore or explain away. It's like right now, I am steadfastly ignoring all of the groundscaping and maintenance that's happening outside. They've been doing it for almost 3 hours, and there's not enough green space out there to justify the amount of noise and the time that they're taking to do this, especially because they were doing it all day Friday too. So it's not like anything that wasn't, there's no justification for the amount of noise. We don't have enough trees or grass to mow and prune for them to make this much noise. But I didn't understand for years that, like, me just tamping down the level of annoyance I had over the noise. Like, there's still nothing I can do about it, but now I understand that hearing this noise makes me feel like I'm being physically assaulted, and acknowledging that makes it easier to deal with because, yes, I know it's still a me problem, but I'm acknowledging that I have a problem at all. I was not able to for a very long time. This is annoying. I'm being driven to distraction, and people wouldn't understand, like, why I was ready to tear my hair out or, like, wind up and punch something because of persistent noise that I couldn't control. Now I know that I have sensory issues to the degree, especially auditorily, that I will lose my mind if I don't come up with a really good distraction to try and ignore the noises. So today, I am keyed up because that is not stopping. Again, it has been almost 3 full hours of this. Plus, my air keeps kicking on. Plus, I have neighbors that have to just live in their apartments. And I hate hearing my neighbors just living in their apartments. It drives me up a wall. Not literally, because that would be annoying to my neighbors, and I try to be a pleasant neighbor. I do not feel that any of my others are super courteous, but these are still the quietest neighbors I've had the whole 6 years I've lived here. This tangent brought to you by my ADHD and my sensory issues. So, because this was largely a societal problem and not a clinical problem, I thought it'd be interesting to start poking around like the meme world to really get to the crux, because that'll show you how people feel about this topic realistically. Because I know I'm not the only one. But I will say that it's not just the lay people of the world that will tell you that you don't look autistic. I got that from people in the vocational rehabilitation world. People who have 30 years of experience and higher education degrees in working with individuals with disabilities to find and maintain employment. And when I suspected I was autistic when I started working there. And then with really good insurance, I was finally able to get tested. And so once I got tested, I started to disclose. And when I disclosed to management, I got told that I didn't look autistic and that I didn't seem autistic. And honestly, that was more insulting than the thing that they did that eventually caused me to quit. I'm still mad because how dare they respond that way? They're supposed to be there to help the general public, and they're going to do that to one of their employees? I hope they treat the general public better than they treat their employees, that's for sure. There was one I had friends there who knew about my journey and they were super, super, super supportive. There was one person who didn't know about my journey who, when I disclosed, her response was, "Thank you for trusting me. How can I communicate better with you?" And she already was one of the best communicators that in that office as it was. Other people made it that my disability was not as important as theirs was, and I was vilified for not being perfect once I disclosed. And that's really frustrating. But it all led with, "But you don't look autistic." Anyway, memes. Memes are fun. That's where I wanted to go with this, as opposed to ranting about stuff there's already videos on this channel about. Because I made a whole video about PTSD about those jerks. So, I pulled a few memes together that I had seen that I felt really kind of addressed what I had to say, think, and feel about this topic. The first one I want to bring up is, "But you don't look autistic." And then the response being, "I learned against my own will how to hide my entire being at a young age as a result of chronic repetitive child abuse, emotional neglect, bullying, ostracism, and social isolation simply because I'm autistic that lasted for over a decade, causing me to involuntarily mask on a daily basis, become a bitter, confused, dissociating mess of a human shell, who for a long time believed that there was something horribly wrong with me as an existing human being and I couldn't comprehend that I was just different, and that there was actually nothing wrong with me, and that I never came to terms with it until early adulthood, and that is why, my friend, I do not look autistic to you." Bit of a mouthful. And I did not deal with abuse or neglect. I was allowed to be weird. I was allowed to embrace the weirdness about me with my family. And I went to a fairly decent school district, but again, I trained myself to live under the radar so that I would never be a target for anyone for any reason. Did not always work because kids know when you're weird. Like, they know. It's so crazy. Then you have the natural, like, "Well, you don't look autistic." Then me, who didn't know autism was supposed to affect how I look like. Because, like, what is it supposed to look like? Honestly. You could just show pictures of people and say, "This is what autism look like," because we look like people look. And people look like all people, right? One of the ones I found most funny was, "To everyone who ever said I didn't look autistic, know that I am constantly running act like people expect.exe In my brain, I'm not always aware I'm doing it, and it's eating up at least 50% of my RAM. It's also the reason for a lot of my CPU overheating. And yeah, I do feel like a computer a lot of the time. In fact, I describe my brain as a web browser with just a lot of tabs open all the time. So I also have act like people expect.exe running in the background all the time. It is so hard to be able to just take the mask off. And it's so hard to just exist in your own natural skin when you're around other people, because other people are very stressful and expect you to act away and act hostile the second you don't act exactly how they think you should act. Which doesn't make any sense at all, because everyone's like, oh, I'm an individual, but you don't act like everyone else. Isn't that the whole point of being an individual? Like, honestly? Then you get the, neurotypicals. Why are you so weird? You're really weird, but I can't figure out why. And then you're just like, I don't know, I'm autistic. Maybe that's it. And their immediate response, but then why are you so normal? You're really normal. Which is it? Am I weird or am I normal? And which version of me is the weird one? Is it the masked version or the me version? No one ever specifies. Just saying. Then, of course, there's the standard, like, you find out, yes, it all makes sense. And then you get the, but you don't look autistic. And they immediately start regretting telling people. And then, yes, one of two things will happen. People either start treating you like a mentally disabled person or like a child, or they will assume you have some mathematical superpower and can just power through stuff. In the image here, they give us a Rubik's Cube. I cannot do a Rubik's Cube. My sense of spatial relation is very, very weird. It's small scale stuff is good. I cannot do a Rubik's Cube. Spatial relations are not. I will walk into a wall, but I can pack a trunk. Like, I am not good at this moving around thing. And naturally, of course, there's the difference between telling neurotypicals and your fellow neurodivergents. It's like telling neurotypicals I'm autistic. I'm actually autistic. And then, I don't think you are. Everyone's a bit autistic. And then, but you make eye contact. I fake it. If you think I've ever looked you in the eye, you are wrong. Just saying, I practiced for years to be able to make eye contact. Eye contact. Right here. Best place to look. People think you're looking at them in the eye and you're not. But then when you tell a fellow autistic person you're autistic, you get a, yeah, we know. We can't always clock each other, but you kind of get a vibe sometimes. And of course, the standard response to when someone says, you don't look autistic. This is autism leaving the body because you don't look autistic. Gee, thanks. I'm cured. So, if someone discloses autism or any disability to them, just say, thank you for telling me. How can I work better with you, be of assistance? Do you have any needs I can help you with? Or just say thank you. You don't even have to offer help. That's just like, I'm intrinsically trained to offer assistance immediately, even if I have no idea what it is that I'm doing. Just say thank you. Thank you for trusting me with your information. Don't tell them that you don't agree with the diagnosis, that you don't believe in that diagnosis, or that they don't look like they have that diagnosis. Those three things are ridiculous. You are not a doctor, and even if you are, you're not that person's doctor. And if you are, listen to your patients, man. When I was reading this, there was an actual example from a therapist who said that she had an autistic patient who was diagnosed with autism, but every other psychiatrist was like, you don't seem autistic. And it was really, really harmful. I'm very lucky that I was able to find therapists that understood and helped me find a psychologist who would mostly understand. I got the diagnosis I was looking for. The write-up is a little bit harsh. I mean, I understand there's a reason that not everyone gets to read their psych report, but mine kind of, to quote my therapist, she diagnosed you with autism and then completely ignored that you had autism and essentially implied that you have borderline personality disorder, which is one of the number one things women are often diagnosed with before they get the correct diagnosis of autism. So, dodged a bullet there. But yeah, so I would ask going forward, don't negate people's diagnoses. Whatever that diagnosis is, don't negate it. Just say, thank you for trusting me. Because really that's all they are, is they're trusting you to take that information about them that they have just found out, just uncovered. And they're trusting you with that information. So don't ruin it. Just say thank you. And if you want to be able to help them, ask how you can help. It's not that hard. Being kind is free. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Try not to suck. Not that hard, people. Though, apparently it is. Who knew? And when all else fails, don't forget to just suck and roll. This tangent brought to you by my ADHD and my sensory issues.